We have the pleasure of welcoming Wayne Tarken today to our interview series. I'm Aishwarya Jain from the peopleHum team. Before we begin, just a quick intro of peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM that is specifically built for crafted employee experiences and the future of work with AI and automation technologies. We run the peopleHum blog and video channel, which receives upwards of 200,000 visitors a year and publish around 2 interviews with well-known names globally every month. And now for our guest, Wayne is an HR coach with Agile HR Consortium. He has a vast experience of 15 years and helps HR leaders worldwide solve their queries from anything related to technology and even emotional aspects of work. He is also faculty of organizational dynamics in the University of Pennsylvania, doing his part to keep the HR world updated. We are happy to have someone of his stature on our interview series. Welcome, Wayne. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for making the time. It's our pleasure. So, Wayne, tell us a little about your journey so far. 15 years in the industry. Can you share some experiences that shaped your thinking and inspired you?
Yep. Well, I think ever since I was a little boy, I was curious about things. So I've always been someone to kind of look below things and try to break things up and figure it out. And had a very successful HR career inside organizations and outside organizations. And about 9 years ago, I decided to go in the inside and try something new. And I actually went into the IT world and became a Scrum Master, which is the name for project leader in an agile environment, building code for IBM. And so we were working on Brass Ring and some of their large enterprise level human capital systems. And, I was enjoying the work. And then I realized that, Agile did one thing that I hadn't really seen before. It actually worked. It actually took big projects, broke them down to small pieces, and they were turned out to be successful. I had been frustrated many years before that because I've done a lot of technology implementations, applicant tracking systems, ERPs, and they all generally had big problems, and most were not successful. And here was a solution that really worked, the method. I said to myself, why can't we do this in HR, right? It's not just for IT. Much of HR are project related. And so 9 years ago, I started thinking about it. Fast forward 2015, got involved with a consortium on the West Coast called Create.net, consortium to reimagine work, and was able to kind of articulate my view of Agile HR. And this was 2015. And so went back, had some more CHRO jobs, and 2017 kind of went out and found I'm going to do this full time. I'm going to evangelize this because I believe in it. And built this consortium of about 70 plus companies who get together for open source sharing collaboration. And we developed this concept that, agile methods can be applied to HR. And so that's where we are today. When you meet someone new, they ask you, what do you do for a living? Well, I'm an agile HR coach. And they say, what's that? I describe it this way, those meetings that you go to in your business that go on forever, and the same thing come up each week and no one ever accomplished anything and everybody's frustrated. Well, Agile helps solve that. And because it looks at different ways of breaking things down into pieces. And so people typically get it that way, but I'm not going to lie, it's a hard sell. It's people perceive it as being an IT function, an IT, product or strategy, but it isn't. It takes the best of IT and combine some leadership practices into something that works in HR or marketing or finance or sales. I think it can be applied anywhere in the organization. We came up with a saying for it called EBITDA. So in the business, in financial world, EBITDA, earnings before income taxes, depreciation, amortization, is a financial term. It describes financial health. And so we struggled for a while, because all transformation is linguistic. You need to have certain language. And we realized that we needed something. And one day, just kind of, I think I was listening to Ginny Rometty on TV. She was the CEO at IBM when I was there, and she was talking about EBITDA. And I said, wow, that's it. And so we created an EBITDA version for Agile, experimentation, break big things, small pieces, incremental iterative work, time box activities, self-guided teams, servant leadership, and always be engaging customers. And so that helps take a little bit of the mystery out of it, because a lot of those things people relate to. Some are tactical, some are strategic, but I think that's helpful in a lot of people kind of figuring it out, understanding it's not some mysterious thing that's IT. It's something that we can use in our own organizations.
Absolutely. And what do you think is, the most challenging part of Ibita, according to you?
Um, well, any change is difficult. I think, I have those of us who are involved with Agile for a while. Uh, we tend to think everybody should know it, everybody should embrace it, and we have to be careful how we talk about it, because the person we're talking to probably has never heard of it. They have fear around it. So I think it's really it's getting people to embrace change, to incrementally try to get your handle around this. I don't recommend that someone go full bore, full blast on Agile. I think you got to start small. I think the biggest impact you can have is the way you meet your meetings. Those monthly or once a week meetings where nothing ever changes, where people get frustrated. I think if you kind of start with doing some short scrum sessions, 10, 15-minute sessions every day versus 2-hour, 3-hour meetings once a week, you'll develop a cadence. You'll identify problems more quickly, and that's a big issue in organizations. There's going to be problems. We can't avoid that, but how do we respond to it, right? And most companies flail with that, whereas Agile helps you articulate, find what the problem is, and come up with a solution in a short period of time. So I think it's just a matter of comfort level. Most organizations aren't comfortable with experimentation. They're designed to execute, not really, plan and think and try to do new things, so we're not incentivized. We're not designed that way. But I think some organizations, especially in the financial industry, banks, ING is an example, companies that are going through disruptions are more likely to embrace Agile or other tools, adaptive space, whatever, design thinking, as a new way of thinking about how we manage people, right? I was involved in a technology project at a big pharma company, and, it's typically over lunchtime, always had lunch. So people came, but after a while, people stopped showing up because nothing was getting done. They were checking their phones, they were tuning out. And so, it's that, and how do we do work? That's the main way we work, right? Is meetings. And if our meetings are a disaster, how can we expect to get better at what we do? How can we expect to improve performance? That's why I think shifting to breaking down big meetings into smaller ones that are more frequent, but ask a couple questions makes a lot more sense.
Absolutely agree with you. And when you also teach organizational dynamics at UPenn, why is building a culture that drives, ownership, engagement so difficult for organizations?
Well, I think, I guess I would describe it as maybe, people have a fear and people don't want to change. So if I'm senior leaders and I've been doing okay in my business and it's growing, why change? I mean, I'm making money. I'm delivering my products. I was talking to the executive in a consumer products company, and she was saying, these guys have been successful for years, and they don't see the need to change. And why would they change? Even though every business is going to be disrupted at some point. And so it's really making a business case that, the way things are now are not going to be the way things are in 5, 10 years. You have to get ready. And so I think it's that fear. I think the other thing is, people have seen these change programs for years, promising, Nirvana, in terms of utopia, and they haven't worked. And so people are somewhat skeptical about new things like Agile design thinking, and they have a right to be. The good news, I think, when it comes to Agile is that it's been around in IT and it's established lots of successes, so it has a track record. But I think, again, it comes back to any change initiative. There's always fear of the unknown. People are comfortable where they are. They don't see the need to change. And, we teach our students to, that change isn't easy, and it's got to be incremental. You got to figure out the targets of opportunity. Where in the organization are people more receptive to kind of taking the baby steps to kind of start a change initiative? How can you support those managers? It's really almost a marketing plan. You know, a lot of companies make the mistake of rolling out massive change for everybody. I don't think those work. I think you have to work person by person, middle manager by middle manager, engaging them, finding people who are receptive, then finding more people receptive, using the people who've adopted to sell it for other people, and then create a critical mass. I think that's really what we teach our students, the only way to be successful when you want to have change. I mean, that's the beauty of Agile is incremental. And so you start small and you scale eventually. And so the same thing works with the change program. You got to start small, have some successes, because if you're not successful, right, people get frustrated, and management starts to lose time, lose patience. And as part of the Agile, you build successes that people can see every 2 weeks. Then you need to build more successes, and so people see things happening. They endorse it. They want to be involved. It's just a better way to manage things.
Absolutely. And in this process, how does technology play a role? What are the kind of HR systems? Now, the legacy ones, as we all know, are very complex and cumbersome, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
how do the newer ones really help in this process?
Well, it's funny, when I started IBM, the big push there was to develop a suite of products that you would go to one vendor and you'd have everything you need. It's kind of funny how that's totally the other way around, right? With things available in the cloud and open source and APIs, companies like yours and others are able to kind of bolt onto a Workday or an SAP or PeopleSoft and provide, individualized functional certain areas. And so I think that's critical. But we have to change some of our thinking. I think a lot of companies still focused on one big, massive technology solution that's going to take care of all our problems. Well, it's not going to take care of all your problems. These things are overly complex. If you look at Word and Excel, do we really use more than 20, 30% of Excel's functionality? Probably not, right? And so who needs the other 70%? Same thing with technology. They're over engineered to a degree, and so they become too complicated that people only use a piece of it and they look elsewhere. So I think absolutely technology, and I think they're easy to install now. People can go on the cloud and use them on their own, which creates some kind of security and privacy issues, but it is the marketplace. So I think those kind of small emerging companies like yours are going to really be have a big part of the technology HR ecosystem in the future. I think the most popular HR technology solution is Excel. I think a lot of people still use Excel spreadsheets for most of their decision making, even though there's tools out there that could provide better solutions. The problem when you use Excel, it's hard. Other people know what you're doing. They can't see that, and so that's why I think there's Google Docs now. We have things online, but I think people just have old habits. People used to having something in front of them they can handle and manage. But I think as time goes on, with the cloud and the internet, people are more comfortable, using a browser and connecting with people out there. So I think technology definitely plays a role here.
Absolutely. And when it comes to behavior in organizations and workplaces, right? What do you believe drives politics at workplaces and their siloed behavior as such?
Mm-hmm. I think, again, fear. People don't want to give up control, even though we talk about self-directed work and servant leadership. Most companies don't practice that, and in some ways, employees don't want that. Especially days like we're dealing with now. We want people to take care of us. We want someone to be in charge. It's tough, when you're in an environment like this where you don't know who's going to be employed, who isn't, what's going to happen, who's going to get sick. And so in some ways, we're desperate for leaders to help us. But leaders can only do so much. You can't really depend on one person to help you. And so in organizations, we like the CEO to kind of tell us what's going on and what we're doing. It's a lot harder to do it ourselves. Now, it's not as effective. Self-directed teams can generate much more productivity, much more capabilities, but it takes time. It's an evolution. But I think the way we're structured, the way we incentivize people, the way we select talent, the way we do budgets, the way we plan, are all focused on hierarchical decision making. And so anything that comes to defeat that or break that down is going to meet resistance unless you have a leader who really is committed to it, who's thinking about the future and saying the way we do business today is not going to be the way we do business in 5 years, and really pushes it. And so you do need that, in some ways, a hierarchy of a leader to kind of really drive it so that we can have self-guided teams and, servant leaders. And we actually call it shared leadership. We believe that employees and leaders get together and they share leadership. It's not one or the other. And so you do have servant leaders, you do have self-guided teams, but collectively, the servant leaders. So I think it's happening. The benefits are real. In IT organizations, you see, Scrum teams and self-guided teams doing lots of great things. And so I think it's a matter of time, but there is still a lot of fear, a lot of resistance, a lot of politics, until we reach a tipping point where we tip to the other direction. If we ever do, we may not. Some organizations have been doing very well, not impacted by things going on. They may stay the same way. Where if you look at financial companies and other industries that have been involved, they may look at things differently.
Absolutely. I think a strong leadership will definitely, bring about some kind of an order, or really like drive the team to success. And that's what strong leaders are all about. They define the role and the value of systems in organizations. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that absolutely makes sense. And with the increase of the gig economy, and there is an increase in the millennial workforce, how do you
Mm-hmm.
think this would fit into the existing system?
Well, being a gig worker myself to a degree, it's interesting. Everybody thinks that all work is going to be gig focused. I'm not so sure about that. I think certain jobs will be gig focused, others will not. There's the issue of how do you coordinate between gig workers and internal workers, right? Who are employees, who are not employees. We have public policy concerns, overtime issues. There's a lot of legal ramifications to all this that needs to be sorted out. I think, not to be political, but one of the advantages of Obamacare was to promote gig economy, that people would have healthcare, which is the biggest barrier, I think, for people to go out on their own and do their own business. They didn't have healthcare. So that's been sort of a changed. But and I'm not so sure it's millennials versus boomers like myself or people in the middle. I think there's always going to be a subset of the population who like virtual work, like being on their own. There's always going to be a larger set of the population that like being involved with a company. But I think the issue is going to be, how do we integrate, coordinate between the two, right? You bring somebody on board in a new employee, there's an orientation program, takes weeks, they're integrated with the system. But when you have the person in the gig economy, how do you bring them into your system? How do you indoctrinate them? I mean, when I worked at Comcast, I was a contractor. I worked right along with employees. And so when it was time to do the engagement survey, all the employees took it. That's not to criticize them. I mean, it's like in every organization. But I was there working just as hard, just as integrated with the other people. But you know, my opinion wasn't asked, and I understood that. But I'm thinking that if you have a whole ecosystem of all kinds of employees, all kinds of workers, I should say, employees, gig vendors, consultants, whatever, we need a better way of kind of bringing them all together in a cohesive way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we kind of coordinate with all kinds of people and have an inclusive workspace, then I think
Yep.
definitely, we can move towards the future, right?
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
when I ask you, what do you have in mind, about an ideal employee experience? What is an ideal employee experience?
Well, I'll tell you a story. When I've been teaching a lot. When I was teaching at Temple, about 10 years ago, maybe longer, I had a student who had a dual marketing and HR background. So that's great, great skill. And that's the only time I've ever seen a student who had that kind of dual major. And I said to myself, that's interesting. And then as I evolved, and as a consultant, you're more involved in the marketplace, right? Because you're trying to sell and interact, and then you're dealing with clients internally. And to me, HR is the new marketing department, right? I mean, we need to treat our employees as customers. All the things we do all the things that organization does externally for customers, they should do internally for employees, right? And so you see a lot of companies doing employee net promoter scores, which is a analytic that says, would you recommend this company? And most companies have a negative, but they've realized this and they're really focusing on that. So all the programs we do should be marketed to employees, and it's not one size fits all. In HR used to be, we put out something, everybody got to take it and that's it. No, it's customized of one. We need to look at the individual, just like a marketer would do. You do personas of your individual people, and you target your efforts to those personas. So what a 25-year-old needs versus a 45-year-old with 3 kids needs, someone in a different location, an engineer, someone from India, they're all different. And so we need to adopt the mindset, these are our customers, and we need to respond with marketing. We need to analyze their personas. We need to figure out what they need. And then the messaging. I did a blog recently where I talked about, it's the most, used to be the most important thing in HR was the services, the content. Not anymore. It's how it's delivered, how it's received. Can I get it on my cell phone? Can I get it on my laptop? Can I get it on my TV? Okay, that's really the content is the differentiator. It's how I engage and make it easy for the employee to receive those things. So that's a lesson that a lot of HR leaders haven't understood, because we're used to the kind of one size, we'll throw it out to you. We got a benefits program, we have a change program, we have a performance management program. Everybody's going to do it. It's going to be done by, December 1st, whatever. Doesn't work that way anymore. I think we need to look at our employees as customers, and we need to respond accordingly.
Absolutely. And do you think that, going forward, especially after we come out of the pandemic, the future of work, as we call it, is that going to change? Is the employee mindset and leadership mindset going to change?
I hope so. I think, we live in, I call it the age of experimentation. And for an agile person, this is like, I'm ecstatic here, because what we've done, we've created a huge experiment. We've taken all these people inside, we've thrown them outside into the workplace. It's like my expression, ready, fire, aim, which what Agile focuses on. It's not perfection, it's trying it and fixing it. So we've thrown all these people out there. Now we got to figure out ways to incentivize them and manage them properly. So I think, I think the future is bright. I'm optimistic that because of all this big experiment, that companies will, embrace more virtual work, more individualized work, more customized work. But I'm not certain. There's still a lot of pressures to execute in the way we've always done it, because we've always been successful. And this pandemic will pass, and we'll go right back to the way business was. And in many instances, that's true. I don't believe all these things that are going to say we're totally different. But who knows? I do think that things like technology, analytics, artificial intelligence are here to stay. I've seen companies are using them to kind of automate their customer service function. Anytime you go to a website, you're always going to interact with a chat bot, which is, artificial intelligence behind it. It's going to interact with you. And so I still think, the human element is still critical. But who knows what the future work is going to be. It's going to be interesting for those of us who are excited about change. It's going to be a fantastic time. For those that are scared to death, they're going to be miserable. But do we really have a choice? I don't think so.
Yeah, absolutely. It's we need to take this in stride and be really headstrong about it, and try to make the best of what might be coming for us, and be prepared as much as possible, because this could be a very good change if you go to see, and if you're ready to kind of embrace that change, then it's only going to be more beneficial for you and your organization, right? And what is your advice to HR right now in these times of crisis?
Listen, be empathetic. People's tough times. Don't try for perfection. I think people, as I to look at our government response, you can say what you want about people should have known, done things differently, but I give them credit for the response. It's been, and I'm not involved in the business that is laying off people, so I maybe have a different perspective, but people are flailing a little bit, and you're going to have these systems don't work, and you're not going to get your treasury checks when you like it. But to me, these are good things. They're trying. We don't have an exact roadmap. We don't have an exact process. Typically, if you had a government program like this, you would take years to put it together, right? Or several months to design all the bells and whistles and all the nuances and all the problems. But we didn't have that luxury. So I give them a lot of credit for throwing it out there. And to me, I think most employees realize that, they're getting it right. Eventually, I'll work with them. And so if I'm an HR leader, I don't have to be perfect. I would take the same concept. Be transparent. I don't have all the answers of HR. What I do know is I'm trying. I need your input. Help me. Talk to me. We'll do it together. I think a lot of HR leaders, they don't have enough. They don't get the crowd behind them. The employees, they're too isolated. Get out there, talk to people, have them communicate, listen to them. We're all in this together, and I think because we're trying this, we're doing the ready, fire, aim. I think people will respond. I think people know that people are trying. They're working hard. Now, if it goes on for 6 months, who knows? But I think we'll see progress, and we already seen progress. People are, you know, I've talked to clients. It's not ideal, but people are settling in to work from home, and they're getting better at it. And so I just, pay attention to employees, be empathetic, realize that you're not perfect, and don't aim to be perfect. Just try, be honest about what worked, what didn't, improve it, and move forward. That would be my advice.
Wow, that is great advice. And I think a lot of people can benefit from this if they really put it into practice. And I don't think it takes too much to put into practice. You just need to have a very open mindset and be a little more proactive than you already are. I think at this point in time, a lot of us are just reactive, and we're
Yep.
probably reacting negatively instead of being more positive. And we just need to
Yep.
change that, tweak that a bit. So absolutely agree with you. Thank you so much for that advice. Well, I had a really wonderful time, Wayne, and thank you so
No,
much
thank
for
you.
engaging with us. Thank you for sharing your views. It's been a learning experience.
My pleasure. It's glad the opportunity to kind of evangelize Agile and help people where I can.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, and take care of
Okay.
yourself.
Have a good day. Thank you.